Hey folks, just a quick little video to show you some tips and tricks and a couple of reminders that hopefully will make your lives a bit easier as you're editing cues in Adobe Audition. Let's talk about fixing the double S edit. And I know you've encountered this before. It's when you make an internal edit where the end of one word ends with S and then the beginning of the next word also starts with S. So let me give you an example. This is from a cut and copy with Julia Coronado.
The theme of the moment is supply chain bottlenecks.
Okay, the theme of the moment is supply chain, yada, 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 right? So let's cut out that Let's clean it up a little bit. There's our Let's blade that out with our razor tool. That's number 6 on your keyboard. We'll delete that. And then I'm going to take this clip and drag it over. And let's see what we get.
The theme of the moment is supply chain bottlenecks.
Okay, is supply chain bottlenecks. That's not the way we speak. When we talk, I'm going to say the theme of the moment is supply chain bottlenecks. I'm connecting that S. With this edit, we can do the same thing. Let's connect that S. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cut about 3/4 of the way through the S on this side, and I'm going to delete it. And then the S on this side, I'm going to cut the first fourth or so of it, and I'm going to delete that. And then let's crossfade what we have left of both S's and see what we get.
The theme of the moment is supply chain bottlenecks.
Bada bing, bada boom. Nobody's going to know you edited that. That's great. While I'm at it,
of the moment,
we got a little repeat there. We can blade that extra the out. Hitting F to select all my clips and dragging them over. Here's our final clip.
The theme of the moment is supply chain bottlenecks.
Perfect. You wouldn't even know. Just highlighting here another quick example of the double S. This is actually one that was not the result of a bad edit, but one that was spoken and I felt was maybe a little bit awkward and could be fixed. So here's Nova Safo in his Marketplace Minute. Here's a sample of that.
Shut the network down last Friday. The damage is growing, especially in southeast states where there are...
Southeast states. Now, again, nothing wrong with that, but it did hit my ear, and I thought maybe I can smooth that over a little bit. So the way I'm going to fix that is here's southeast, and then here's states. This is the silence in between. I'm actually going to blade out the silence in between those two S's, and I'm going to drag this clip over and create a crossfade, and let's see what we get.
The damage is growing, especially in southeast states where there are reports.
Yeah, I think that is smoother. Again, this was not a super necessary edit to make. It just felt better to my ears. Okay, I want to talk about breaths. They are, when poorly edited, a really big giveaway that your interview is not live or that it's been cut and cut poorly. So let me just show you an example of what we call an upcut breath. This is from a cue David Brancaccio did with an art critic named Blake Gopnik. So here's some of Blake Gopnik speaking.
Or not. I mean, the case of forgery, or, when a work by Rembrandt, like...
Okay, so there it was. Let me play it again.
Forgery, or, when a work by Rembrandt...
So the problem with that is the breath did not have time to complete itself, and it's kind of running right into the first words of the next sentence. So it's really a simple fix. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click F on the keyboard. That's going to select everything beneath and to the right of my playhead. And I'm going to drag everything over, and it'll give me some space to see how far this breath goes. I want to see where it ends naturally. It looks like it ends, right about there. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that clip right to where the breath ends. And then I'm going to hit F again. And once again, that selects everything to the right of my playhead. It'll drag everything over at the same time. I'm going to drag it over to where that breath ended. And now let's hear that section.
Really by someone or not. I mean, the case of forgery, or, when a work by Rembrandt...
Yeah, there you go. A lot more natural. And while I'm at it, this sounds a little bit splicey.
When a work by Rembrandt, like...
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Why don't we give this some space as well, hitting F to move everything over, dragging forward this clip, doing a crossfade. Let's see how that sounds.
Case of forgery, or, when a work by Rembrandt, like the poet...
Oh, yeah, that is smooth. You can't tell that's edited. Okay, another tip here is long breaths. Sometimes you want to cut these. They're too long, distracting, overly weird, whatever it is. So here's a submix that was delivered to me. Here's the original edit, and this sounds pretty fine, but it's a long breath. Here it is.
Yeah, it's completely insane. Now, normally in the art world...
Yeah, it's fine, but the breath does not need to be that long. So, one solution, which is what one producer tried, is grabbing an entirely different breath, a shorter one, and splicing it over that long breath, replacing it basically. Here's how that sounds.
Yeah, it's completely insane. Now, normally in the art world,
Yeah, not really working. I think we can do better. And let's go back and use that original breath. It's going to be a real simple change. Here's what we're going to do. Put my playhead over that long breath right here. I'm going to hit T on my keyboard. That's going to splice the clip. And then again, I'm going to hit F to select everything to the right of my playhead. And I'm going to click and drag over to the left and basically cut that breath in half. But we've got this crossfade here, so it'll be real smooth. Check this out.
Or a copy.
yeah, it's completely insane. Now, normally in the art,
Yeah, that sounds totally natural. That's great. And I think we can even go a little bit shorter with the breath if we wanted to. So I'm going to shorten this clip. And again, hitting F to select all the clips to the right. I'm going to drag this even more to the left. Let's see how far we can go.
Original or a copy.
yeah, it's completely insane. Now, normally in the art world,
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. I think we can leave that one there. Okay, so there's just a couple tips for breaths. Now, let's talk about some strategies for dealing with upcut interview bites. The number one way to fix an upcut interview is to not create the upcut in the first place. Obviously, that's not possible. We're working in radio, we've got time constraints, and on top of that, sometimes you've got guests who go on tangents and they talk for forever and forever, go on rabbit trails, and you got to rein them in. So here's one example of that. We've got an interview with Kai Ryssdal and Barry Ritholtz, and let's listen to a clip here.
Are most of my peers. So if you want any of us to work for you, you better step up and pay wages.
All right, so look, 64,000.
Yeah, that was pretty obvious. Here's that again.
Want any of us to work for you, you better step up and pay wages.
All right, so look, 64.
Okay, so two things hitting my ear. The obvious thing is the way that he says wages. It doesn't sound natural because it's a short S, and I can tell he wants to say more. In fact, if I drag this clip out, I can clearly see there's more he has to say. A short breath, and then he goes on and on and on. The other thing that hits my ear is that Kai comes in pretty quickly, and it sounds like he didn't have time to think about and react to what Barry was saying. And that's true, because we've created this situation here that didn't really happen, didn't really exist this way. So a couple things that we can try to do. Sometimes what works is actually bringing the host over to where you made that upcut and having them kind of make it seem as if they interrupted the guest. Now, there are issues with this. A lot of times this does not work audio-wise, but also editorially, you may run into a little trouble there. So that's something to keep in mind. But let's just try this. I hit F to drag all my clips over at once, everything that was behind the playhead. Let's hear how it sounded.
Any of us to work for you, you better step up and pay wages.
All right, so look, 64.
Okay, that was laughable. Yep, that did not work. That's okay. Let me put that back. In which case, let me follow my instinct, which was that Kai came in too quickly. So I'm going to hit F again to drag him and everything else a little bit further back, give some space. Now let's deal with what I think is the bigger issue, which is the S.
And pay wages.
On pay wages. One way we can try to deal with this is if we extend this out, we see we've got a short little breath here, and it's going nowhere. What if we do a super steep crossfade and drag it all the way right up to where that S is and maybe shorten this some? Let's see what that sounds like.
Of us to work for you, you better step up and pay wages.
Yeah, maybe in this case, I don't think that really helped. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. And I think the best way to proceed is to try and find an S that has a downward inflected cadence, something that sounds like it's finishing a phrase and is also longer. This is a really short S. There you go. You can hardly hear it. I happen to know that there is a long downward inflected cadence S in this cue, and it happens towards the end here. Let's listen to this.
That's unfortunately not how economics works.
Not how economics works. There's our S. I'm going to hit 8 on the keyboard to make a selection of this section right here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Control C to copy that. And if I go back to my edit point, I'll just go over and paste it under the timeline. So all I'm going to try and do is take this clip of the new S and drag it over the clip of the old S just to create a crossfade. Let's see what we get.
Us to work for you, you better step up and pay wages.
All right, so look.
Wow, that was pretty good. Close your eyes.
Us to work for you, you better step up and pay wages.
All right, so look,
That's a good edit. That is, I think that works. We'll add a down fade and an up fade on those clips.
You better step up and pay wages.
All right, so look, 64,000.
Cool. Yeah. Shout out to Brian Allison, who actually did this edit, was smart enough to do it and sounded great when this was broadcast in the middle of June. Nice work, Brian. So I had a lot of requests to show how we're able to swap out audio for cues that have already been edited. So we're talking about, let's say, a cue that was done with the guest on Zoom or on phone. And when we go to mix, we're able to swap out that Zoom or phone audio with an iPhone sync or some other kind of better quality recording. Now, I want to preface this by saying there are a lot of steps involved and a lot of different ways of doing this, but also a lot of ways it can go wrong. So I would highly advise that you leave this to us on the media production team. If you need something done urgently, shoot us a message and say, I need this ASAP, and hopefully one of us can hop on it right away. But that being said, I wanted to show you all how we do it so you have a better picture of what's involved. So I've got this cue here. This is David Brancaccio talking to Chris Lowe on a Friday about what's happening in the market. It was recorded by phone, and here is a sample of that.
Fewer people were looking for work?
Yeah, that was a disappointment. The labor participation rate, that's...
Okay, there you go. Now, this is a submix. You can see we've got edits, we've got fades. This is ready to be mixed. So what I'm going to do is go to my email where Chris Lowe has sent me his iPhone sync, and I'm going to download that. Here's that raw sync. It's recorded in the native iPhone format of M4A. I'm going to convert that to WAV file before it goes into my project. So I'm going to go File, Save As. We'll call it low sync. That's fine. The format is WAV. Our house format is 48,000 hertz, 24-bit. So I'm going to change that, hit OK, and hit OK. And then I'm going to hit Save. Alrighty. And then one more thing I'm going to do while I'm here in the destructive waveform editor view, destructive meaning we're altering the file. No going back once we save these changes. I'm going to bring down the level by about negative 10 decibels to help get it to broadcast level. It'll help it match David's volume. It'll be easier to edit that way. Okay, so, and I did that just by going here and typing negative 10, but you can also do it by grabbing your slider and dragging it down. Anyway, let me undo that and go back to our submix project. I'm going to mute the tracks for the host and the guest that are already edited, and I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to drag in from the Files panel over here the raw guest track. This is the raw phone recording. Here's that.
Not 559,000.
Right? And then beneath that, I'm going to drag in the iPhone sync. And here's that.
But before the pandemic.
Right? Okay. So my goal here is to perfectly line up the original phone recording with the iPhone recording. They need to have the same endpoint, the same out point. The words need to line up exactly. So I'm just going to do that by chopping off the beginning of the iPhone sync. I'm going to hit A. That's going to chop off the beginning up to the playhead. I can do the same thing on the outro with the letter S. It'll chop off everything from behind the playhead up to the playhead. There's that. And then I'm going to start doing some lining up. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to chop some more off the top. And let's see how closely we can get it lined up.
Good morning, David.
That's pretty good. Let's check internally.
We know that's where the...
That all sounds good. And the end.
There might be bigger. Thank you, David.
Great. That all sounds good. One more thing we're going to do is I'm going to hit Y on the keyboard. That's going to turn on snapping. And you'll notice as I drag this clip, we get these blue lines. That means they're butted up against each other, perfectly ending at the same point. And I can do the same at the beginning. If I go over here, I'll extend this clip out. And now these two files in multi-track view are the same length. So what we need to do is commit this change. And we're going to do that by muting the old original phone tape and exporting only the iPhone sync. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control-Shift-B on the keyboard. And we'll give this file a name. We'll call it low sync. For relink, we'll save it in our root folder on Dropbox, let's say, and we'll hit OK. Okay, now that we've done that, we can delete both of these tracks that we created. These were just temporary tracks. That'll be Control-Alt-Backspace. Get rid of these guys. And we can unmute our original edited tracks. And I'm going to hit Shift F to bring everything into zoomed focus. All right, so here's our low sync for relink. What I'm going to do is select all the clips on our guest track that's been edited, right-click, and hit Link Media. And let's find that file here in Finder or File Explorer. Low sync for relink, there it is. Let's hit Open. And if we did everything right, all of our edits should line up.
Good morning, David.
Well, disappointed in this.
You know, we went into the 159,000.
Yeah, there you go. All the edits line up. One thing that you will have to do is check all of your edit points. You want to make sure you fix any timing issues. Different audio systems run on different clocks, meaning they all interpret time differently, sometimes faster, sometimes shorter. And so sometimes on longer audio files, if you get an interview sync that's, let's say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, the audio will slowly drift over time and become out of sync. So you'll want to watch out for that for sure. Otherwise, check your edit points.
But on the other,
Check your fades, make sure everything still sounds natural, and then you're good to go. Well, I hope some of that was useful to you. And of course, got any questions at all, email us, mediaproduction@marketplace.org.